This engagement, as we have been told, has been necessitated by the discussions surrounding a legislative instrument, an ally, that the Akufo-Addo and Alhaji Bawumia's NPP government is desperately attempting to introduce in Parliament, which has a very far-reaching implications to the people of Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, the said legislative instrument, the export and import restrictions on imposition of selected strategic products, Regulation 2023, seeks to give a minister responsible for trade and industry the sole prerogative and unfettered power to grant licenses to any person desirous of importing into the country some essential items numbering about 24. These items are as follows. Number 1, rice. Number 2, poultry. 3, frozen cat and offal of fowl. 4, animal, vegetable, and coconut and palm oil. Margarine, fruit juice, soft drinks, mineral water, ceramic tiles, corrugated paper and paper boards, mosquito coils and insecticides, soaps and detergent, motor cars, iron and steel, diapers, polymers, which is plastic and plastic products, fish, sugar, clothing and apparel, biscuits, canned tomatoes, and aluminium products. As expected, these ill-conceived regulations have faced stiff resistance from the NDC members of Parliament, the minority in Parliament. Indeed, we, the NDC minority, have not been alone in this endeavor, as the business community and other well-meaning Ghanaians have joined us in opposing these restrictions, which clearly do not bode well for the people of Ghana. Indeed, the Joint Business Consultative Forum, comprising reputable organizations such as the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA, Food and Beverages Association of Ghana, FABAG, Importers and Exporters Association of Ghana, Ghana Institute of Freight Forwarders, Chamber of Automobile Dealership Ghana, and the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, argue that the LI, if enacted, would have a serious detrimental effect on their businesses. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, let me make this clear, that in principle, the NDC is not against any legal regime or policy that seeks to protect indigenous businesses by regulating imports. What we are vehemently opposed to or against is a law that seeks to confess unfettered discretionary powers on a single individual, in this case, a minister responsible for trade and industry, to issue import licenses and to restrict the quantity of certain imports into the country without any checks and balances. Such laws often breed corruption and cronyism and can easily be abused to create a monopoly for some few individuals. As it is often said, power corrupts, but absolute power corrupts absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, simply put, the proposed import restrictions regulation of the failed Akufo-Addo and Bawumia government seeks to grant unchecked discretionary power to a minister for trade and industry to solely determine whether or not to issue an import license to a person and to restrict the quantity of certain imports into the country as he sees fit. Unfortunately, the regulatory framework proposed by the LI is not only opaque, but can lend itself to arbitrariness and abuse. This clearly is going to be an avenue for distortion and corruption if allowed to stand. And that is why the NDC minority do not believe that this should be allowed to stand. Also, the proposed regulation seeks to impose both an application fee and a license renewable fee on prospective importers. This will, in no doubt, impose an additional burden on businesses which are already wobbling under so much pressure from several draconian tax measures and the bad policies of the insensitive Akufo-Addo and Dr. Bawumia government. Even after one has fulfilled this requirement and paid the necessary application or renewable fees, the decision to issue or renew an import license rests solely with a minister responsible for trade, who can potentially use such unfettered powers to frustrate businesses that he perceived to be his or the party's political opponent. Additionally, under the proposed regulation, a Minister of Trade and Industry will constitute into himself a judge in his own case, a judge in his own cause. Ladies and gentlemen, in the sense that the same minister who seized with the power to grant, renew, or cancel an import license is equally clothed with the power to unilaterally determine a review application against his own decisions. This arrangement is clearly against natural justice. It is instructive to note that currently, Ghana does not have any significant local capacity to produce some of these strategic products listed under the first shadow of the proposed legislative instrument, such as sugar, among others. Neither has the government outlined any specific interventions or incentives to promote the local production of such products. This completely belies the government's claim that the proposed regulations are intended to promote local production of the affected product and conserve foreign exchange, as has been argued by the government. More importantly, the proposed regulations gravely offend some international trade treaties and protocols that Ghana has signed up to. Ladies and gentlemen, let me also say that this very ally breaches the IMF agreement that Ghana has recently agreed with the International Monetary Fund. That says clearly that Ghana, within the course of the program, cannot sign on to any import restriction policy. For instance, the regulation in its current form clearly also contravenes the World Trade Organization, WTO, Trade Facilitation Agreement, particularly on quantitative restrictions. This could lead to serious retaliatory action by our trade partners and eventually affect export from Ghana, like that of our cocoa and other things that we export out of Ghana. It should be obvious to any discerning mind and Ghanaian that the excessive discretionary powers that the law grants a minister responsible for trade and industry will afford him or her the opportunity to subject the issuance and renewal of import permits to cronies or state capture. If this law is allowed to pass, a Minister of Trade will be handed a blank check to deny those who are not in his good books. So if the minister thinks that you don't look pretty or nice, he can decide to refuse you licenses and create powerful trade cartel who will monopolize the importation of this essential product. And I'm not sure no one here wants the minister to create these cartels in our economy, and these cartels, if created, will not be a good news for ourselves. This has the potential of creating supply chain disruptions and shortages of certain goods in the economy, and its concomitant effect on inflation of certain goods and services. The NDC holds the view that the right to import essential commodities into the country cannot be limited on the whims and caprices of a Minister of Trade and Industry, his deputy, or a certain import permit committee which will be constituted by the minister responsible for trade under Regulation 2 of the proposed regulations that is before Parliament. The alternative view of the NDC on this matter is as follows. 1. Where there is a credible data exists to show that Ghana has adequate domestic capacity to produce a particular product, or where the consumption of a product has been proven to be injurious to public health or safety, government can simply place a ban on the importation of such product into the country. For example, I've heard people saying that Yemadeɛ should be banned, and it's not good for us, and it should not be imported into our economy. The question is, if there is evidence proven by experts that it is against our health and is injurious to our health, then the government should do what is required to do, but not necessarily restricting the importation. You can equally ban it if you think that is what you should do. However, where a particular product has not been proven to be harmful to public health or safety, and there is no credible data to show that enough domestic capacity exists to meet the demand for that product, government can regulate the importation of that product in two main ways. One of the ways is to introduce a transparent quota system for the importation of certain products, as was done by the elsewhere NDC John Mahama administration in the poultry sector. During that time, a quota system requires a prospective importer of a particular product to first show proof of utilizing existing local capacity by procuring a certain percentage of his intended import volumes locally. When the elsewhere NDC John Mahama government realized that the local poultry industry has the capacity to meet about 20% of our local consumption, the then government introduced the 40% rule in the poultry industry in the year 2014, which required that poultry importers to produce at least 40% of their total stock from local poultry pitches. Let me take this again. In 2014, what we did required poultry importers to purchase at least 40% of their total stock from local poultry farmers. This policy was implemented alongside the Ghana Broiler Project and other incentives for local poultry farmers aimed at enhancing the domestic production of poultry. Another mechanism that can be used to regulate import with the aim of protecting the indigenous industry is the imposition of tariff and non-tariff measures on certain products to encourage the patronage and consumption of locally produced commodities. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a known fact that trade volumes at our port have dropped drastically under the failed Akufo-Addo and Bawumia government due to high duties and taxes. Similarly, smuggling of goods out of Ghana to other neighboring countries has intensified due to the porous nature of our borders. The obnoxious legislative instrument before Parliament will exacerbate these problems and negatively impact livelihood and the economy as a whole. As you may be aware, the insensitive Akufo-Addo Bawumia government is also seeking to introduce a new raft of draconian tax measures on the already impoverished Ghanaians on the back of the 2024 budget. These tax measures, which are currently before Parliament, include the following: an imposition of VAT on non-life insurance, such as motor or car insurance, marine insurance, fire insurance, building insurance, goods in transit. Let me take this again. You may be aware that before Parliament, there's a number of tax measures already that the minister responsible for finance, representing His Excellency the President and the Vice President, Alhaji Bawumia, has submitted to Parliament for approval. And some of these taxes include the following. They are imposing a VAT on all non-life insurance, such as motor cars. So if you are going to buy car insurance, you pay VAT. If you are buying marine insurance, you pay VAT. If you are buying fire insurance, you pay VAT. You pay VAT on your building insurance. You pay VAT on goods in transit, and many more non-life insurance. He has also imposed 5% VAT flat rate on residential and commercial real estate. Ladies and gentlemen, Ghanaians should get ready to pay 5% VAT anytime you buy a house from an individual or a real estate company. Going forward, if this law goes through, the VAT before Parliament goes through, if you intend to buy a house, get ready to put 5% aside for President Akufo-Addo and Alhaji Bawumia. Because every house you buy going forward, you will pay 5% VAT on the quantum of the amount that you are supposed to buy. So if it is 1 million Ghana cedis house you are buying, you will pay 50,000 Ghana cedis to President Akufo-Addo and Alhaji Bawumia. He's also imposing taxes on textbooks, VAT on textbooks, exercise books, newspapers, publications, architectural plan, scientific and technical works, magazines, periodicals, calendars, trade catalog, price list, diaries, and stationery. So including pens, stationery including pen and paper, you pay VAT on them. They are also imposing VAT on domestic air travel. So if you are going to Kumasi, Takoradi, or Tamale, and you decide to use aeroplane, you will pay VAT on those products. Passion, whatever. All domestic airlines will now attract VAT. Imposition of VAT on domestic transportation of passengers by road, rail, and water. So if you charter a car, get ready, you will pay VAT. There's no strong railway system, but it says the rail and water as well. You end up paying VAT. There's an increase in stamp duty rates across board. Again, there was a new tax measure also before Parliament called Excise Duty Amendment Bill. And the new Excise Duty Amendment Bill seeks to increase the excise duty on cider beer from 20% to 47% of ex-factory price. So those of you that consume things such as Savannah, you'll be paying Heineken, cider beer. It's going to go up from 20% to 47%. And of ex-factory price, same as Apeteshi. You pay 20% tax on Apeteshi. I don't know how they are going to get the Apeteshi tax from. The bill also seeks to introduce excise duty of 100 Ghana cedis per annum for all petrol and diesel vehicles. Diesel and petrol vehicles going forward, each one of them will be paying 100 Ghana cedis. And this is what they call the internal combustion engine vehicles. And this includes all private cars, trotro, Uber cars, taxis, motorcycles, Aboboya, Prajia, Okada, Mahama Kandu. All of them will end up paying 100 Ghana cedis. Mahama Kandu, if you go to the north, it's very popular there, Mahama Kandu. Yellow. Then we have the Okada, Prajia, Aboboya, motorcycles, taxis, Uber, trotro, articulators. Every car that uses diesel and petrol and registered at the DVLA, 100 Ghana cedis, no exemption. Ambulance, the car, including Hess, all of them, you end up paying that kind of tax. This particular tax, as I've mentioned, is regressive, since all vehicles will pay the same amount of 100 Ghana cedis per year, whether you are using a V8 articulator or an Uber car. And that is how regressive the tax is. Why should someone that has the money and is able to buy V8 pay the same 100 Ghana cedis as the person that is using Okada or Prajia? or yellow, okay, or Mahama can do. I mean, it shows that this tax is nothing but a very regressive tax. Furthermore, the bill seeks to introduce excise duty of 100 Ghana cedis per ton of carbon dioxide emission by industry. So what this simply means is that if you are a company and you produce smoke, carbon dioxide smoke emission, they'll come and measure it. I don't know how they will measure it. And if they measure it, a ton of the emission, you pay 100 Ghana cedis. 1 ton, 100 Ghana. So if you produce 50 tons, 50 times 100, 50 times 100. So they will come there and measure the smoke, the wusuo. If the wusuo is that big, then they will give you 100 Ghana cedis. And probably they will use a size like that. And if it's that big, 100, that big, 200, another big, 400. So depending on the size of the wusuo you produce, you will be paying tax of 100 Ghana cedis per ton. My colleague Honorable Adongo says this is a Nwusuo tax. Nwusie tax. It's a tax for smoke. And so be careful, don't generate smoke in your bedroom, else you end up paying Nwusie tax. Ladies and gentlemen, amid all these taxes, it is our considered view, we the NDC, that these regulations are regressive, counterproductive, and have the potential to breed corruption, just like the days of the essential commodity and price control. And I'm sure most of you here, you may not have witnessed the price control regime those days, including myself, but we may have heard of it. And the days of Kalabule and what it did. President Akufo-Addo and Alhaji Bawumia seeks to bring Kalabule back into our economy. Clearly, the proposed legislative instrument on the import restrictions is completely unwarranted and unwelcome. We in the NDC cannot welcome this legislative instrument. Already, importers and business community have amply demonstrated how these regulations lack broad consultation and consensus. We therefore call on government to withdraw these regulations immediately and broaden its engagement with all key stakeholders. We call on the Trade Union Congress, the TUC, the civil society organizations, the CSOs, traditional authorities, the clergy, such as the Catholic Bishop Conference, the Apostolic Fathers, and all clergy, chief imam, and everyone else, and all progressive forces to speak up and join the NDC minority to reject this obnoxious import restriction regulation in the supreme interest of our dear country. Colleagues, we can't fight this alone. We in the NDC in Parliament cannot fight this alone. The Constitution is clear on this matter. Before we torpedo this legislative instrument through parliamentary process, it will require 2/3 majority to overturn it. The NDC members, our number is 137. We do not have 2/3. And so we alone cannot stop this. So far, we have used strategies in Parliament to curtail delaying. It cannot continue. All what we are asking is that we can't do this alone. So join us, our brothers and sisters from the media, join us. Let us stop this obnoxious legislative instrument that seeks to ransack and create opportunity for others to make money. Thank you very much.
For more news, please visit our website, graphic.com.gh, or follow us on Facebook at Daily Graphic and on YouTube and Twitter at GraphicGH.
Subscribe now.